working through problem number 3 for concept 7 of unit S SSS. Our problem is sine of x divided by 2 plus cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. And for this we're going to use the half angle formulas to plug it into sine. So we have plus or minus 1 minus cosine x divided by 2 all square rooted plus cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. For this part we're going to move this whole section over to the other side so that we may get plus or minus 1 minus cosine x over 2 all square rooted plus 1 minus cosine x. And for this part we are going to square both sides so that we may get rid of this square root. So for this part we have 1 minus cosine x over 2, and for this part we FOIL and we end up getting 1 minus cosine x plus cosine squared x. So it results into 1 minus cosine x over 2 equals 1 minus 2 cosine x plus cosine squared x. And now for here we are trying to get rid of the 2, so we multiplied both sides by 2 so that we may get 1 minus cosine x equals 2 minus 4 cosine x plus 2 cosine squared x. And for our next step we are going to move this over so that we may have everything on one side. So we subtract 1 and we add cosine x so that we end up getting 1 minus 3 cosine x plus 2 cosine squared x. And just so that it's easier for us to be able to know what we're doing, I'm going to change it into 1 minus 3u plus 2u squared so that we may factor it easily. So we have 2u squared minus 3u and plus 1. For 2u we can factor a 2u and a u, and then for 1 we have a negative 1 and a negative 1. These two multiply for negative u, and these two multiply for a negative 2u. Added together would equal to that, so it's all good. And so for here we have 0 equals 2 cosine x minus 1 and cosine x minus 1. We end up getting two different problems. So we have 2 cosine x minus 1 equals 0 and cosine x minus 1 equals 0. For this part we add 1 and divide by 2 to get cosine x equals 1/2, and for this one we just add 1 to the other side. Now, so we know that cosine is positive for both sides, so it's really just x over r, with x equaling to 1/2 for this, which with our magic 5 we have 30, 45, and 60. 60 is the one with 1/2. So we have 60, and knowing that cosine is positive in the quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, we use the 60 reference angle for 300 degrees. And cosine equaling 1, which is really x equaling to 1, we have 0 degrees. And we have our radians for these two problems, which is pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3, and this one is just 0. Since we did square both parts over here, we are going to check for extraneous solutions by plugging it into our original equation, which is sine of x over 2 plus cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. So for our first part, for our first problem, which we are right here, we plug it in, so it's sine, and it's going to be half of it, so it's sine of 30, and cosine of 60 minus 1, which sine of 30 with our magic 5 is really 1/2, and cosine of 60 is 1/2. Adding those two would be 1 minus 1 equals 0, so that's right. That is the solution. And then we have sine of 150, which is 1/2 of 300, cosine of 300 minus 1, and sine of 150 is 1/2, taking in consideration of reference angle of 30 degrees, and it is positive, and same with cosine, so it's 1/2 plus 1/2, which is 1 minus 1 equaling 0, so that works as well. And then we have sine of 0, cosine of 0 minus 1 equaling to 0. Sine of 0 is 0, and cosine of 0 is 1. So 1 minus 1 equaling 0 is correct. So all of our solutions over here are all correct. Thank you very much.